Welcome to the IMM Friday Flash Talk, anchored by Govin Whittles.
The reason why that responsibility was taken away from the Hawks is not yet known.
With marketing enthusiast Tarasai Moffat.
To have a return on sales, you need to have posts that are going to be engaging.
Brought to you by the Institute of Marketing Management, South Africa. Good morning and welcome to another installment of the Institute of Marketing Management's IMM Friday Flash Talks. This is a platform where we hope to bring you some insights about the latest trends in marketing, what's news in the world of marketing, and official and unofficial words from experts about what you should be thinking about and what you should be doing when rolling out the marketing mix in a modern African context. That's exactly what we'll talk about today. The topic for today is the Africa Free Trade Agreement, specifically known as the African Continental Free Trade Area. And we're talking about whether it will have a positive impact as intended on the world of marketers. And today we bring you two special guests, experts in their own right in their different fields. The first is our pleasure to introduce Helen McIntee. She's the president of the African Marketing Confederation, as well as Mulemwa Moongwa. She's the chairperson of the Zambia Institute of Tourism and Hospitality Studies. And as always, we're joined by Tarasai Moffat. She's the co-founder of Gateway Synergy, also the MD, a marketing enthusiast with 15 years of experience in the field, here to tell us what marketers are thinking about the free trade area. But first, we'd always like to ask you to join us on social media. Interact with us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, even on TikTok. Leave your views, take the conversation further, and tell us what you think about the discussions that take place on this platform. It's the IMM Friday Flash Talk, another installment of insightful views. And I think we should begin with Helen. Helen, we're talking about the African Continental Free Trade Area and the kind of opportunities that it would present to marketers. Just tell us about some of your initial thoughts about what the opportunities are here and what this means for the world of marketing, particularly in the African context.
Thank you. Thanks very much. And hi to everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I probably have to bow down to the greater knowledge of the other participants in terms of the African Continental Free Trade Area. However, we have our theme coming up at the African Marketing Confederation conference in September. Our theme is Africa's $3.4 trillion marketing opportunities. Trillion? Yes, trillion. And I think from a marketing point of view, my own point of view, we can look at it from the opportunities available to marketers in terms of their products and services, with obviously offering free trade and getting cross-border, getting our products and so on cross-border. But I also need to look at it, having researched, I think we need to look at it as, is the free trade area, the African Continental Free Trade Area, marketing itself correctly? Are people aware of what it means, what the benefits are? And I think from a marketing point of view, there's the 2 points. There's obviously us being able to market our goods and services on the continent more easily, but also do really people understand what the whole free trade area agreement is about?
We'll try to unpack what it actually means, what it's about, and whether or not this is something which is in principle still a theory or is actually being rolled out in different countries. Well, let's talk a little bit about hospitality and tourism. And often the kind of partnerships which exist between African countries, which are easy to negotiate, particularly between governments, are the tourism partnerships. That's because I think African countries have so much experience navigating the world of tourism, and Africa has become somewhat of a leader in presenting tourism packages. What do you think a free trade agreement would present for marketers when they consider tourism?
Thank you so much. I am going to try and not be an educator. I will try to limit the detail that I give. But coming to look at it from, I've been in practice in the business tourism. I'm a meeting specialist, and my job has been to primarily build events, build and sell events, market events. So this was my background, and now I've pivoted into industry advocacy, which happened during the pandemic. And it's about the same time that the free trade agreement came into play. Now, what was very significant about this is an idea that wants to drive the agenda of intra-Africa movement of goods and people. And the movement of people, that is where the tourism angle comes in. Now, what was very interesting during the pandemic was that the world was closed. We were closed off as Africa from the world, and we were crying foul. But we're a continent of 1.3 billion people, and we hadn't done enough for ourselves to really realize that we didn't need the world. We could have been moving amongst ourselves and we could have been okay. And that's what happened, because the domestic tourism numbers skyrocketed because people couldn't do the Dubais and people couldn't do, the rest of the world. But this is what now becomes the opportunity from a marketing point of view, because we need to now relearn how to package ourselves, because the world packaged itself to us. We were more inclined to travel outside of Africa than we were within Africa. You find that most young people know the rest of the world. They know where the Eiffel Tower is. They probably don't know what Table Mountain or the pyramids look like. So we now need a cadre of professionals that is going to help the industry actually start packaging the destination for its people. So we were primarily focused on the tourists that were coming to Africa. We never really looked at ourselves as our own target market. So what has now happened is the opportunity that has arisen. And now that we've got the initiative, the policies that are supporting the free movement of people and also commodifying visiting. So visiting another destination becomes an opportunity, an economic activity. So we now just need to know, how do we package? And that is the opportunity, I think, for marketers. I will rest here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's all about packaging. Let me talk about what it is, actually. So the African Continental Free Trade Area is supposed to be an intra-trade tariff-free arrangement where 54 countries are able to trade with each other without tariffs, where they're able to move goods and services across borders in an easier way. And in order to achieve this, the 54 countries need to sign what they call deposit instruments. It's kind of like agreeing to be bound by the rules of the free trade area. And then they need to sign protocols which will enable the tariff-free trading. So there's a lot of politics involved there. So it's a lot of political will that's involved there. But principally what we're talking about here is access to markets. And I think that presents a really new opportunity, which I suppose has been there before, but an opportunity to have solidified strategies and invest in strategies which would be applicable across the continent. And that's why I'd like to bring in Tarasai, who would tell us about what the view is of marketers at the moment with regards to the free trade area, and whether they're looking at changing things, or if they're waiting to see what the politicians will do and whether this will actually get off the ground.
Thank you, Govan, and thank you, ladies, for the informative discussion, and we look forward to continuing to engage with you. So from a marketer's perspective, there's a bit of fear associated with the African trade, because there is a sense that if we open up the market so much, how can we compete against each other when the standard and the quality of our products, or the packaging of our products, or the branding of our products might not be the same? Because once obviously the markets are open, it means there could be an influx of cheaper products, and with those cheaper products, then your product can be less and less on the shelf. So there's a bit of that fear, but what they don't understand at the same time is it presents an opportunity that now, instead of having a market that was only, let's say, 1 million people within your country, you now have 1.4 billion or 4 trillion people to market to, which means you've opened up your market and your product can go across borders to other places where you might be able to sell. So your goods in South Africa can go to Ghana, can go to Rwanda, can go to, you're no longer limited to just the confines of your product in your company and in your organization. So there needs to be that awareness that Helen was mentioning, that it's not a case of being afraid that my product is going to be drowned by all the products that are going to flood in, and we're going to be competing locally. Already we're competing against your China products, your Europe products, and we can't compete from a raw products point in terms of the production process and the turnaround times. So for that reason, there needs to be that education and awareness as to where can you market your products? Can you use e-commerce to market your products? Can you move your goods and products closer to your to other markets? Rwanda already began that, and they sent goods, batteries from Rwanda into Ghana, which boosted their production. Zambia did it with their beef. Their beef was being sold in Zambia, and now it's being sold in Nigeria, which doubled and increased their production line and their budgets. So there needs to be that awareness that you now have more market, not less market, and not less competition.
Helen, how important is market exclusivity? And are brands hoping to kind of hide their markets from other brands in different countries, which they know might actually come here and force them to repitch their idea, reprice it perhaps? Or is it a case of them welcoming it?
Govind, thank you. I think I can go back to what Teresa was saying. There is a great deal of fear, but that's a marketing fear that's been around since marketing began, is the fear of competition. And I think that needs to be addressed. And the only way that that can be addressed is by us as marketers on the continent explaining the benefits of competition and the benefits of this new agreement. It's going to take some time, but I think that's the key, as Teresa was saying, is get rid of the fear and show the benefits. We all sell our products on the benefits, not on the actual product itself. So I think if we can make it clear that this free trade area is going to benefit us as marketers and as a continent as a whole, I think that would be the starting point, as Teresa has quite correctly said.
Just to follow up on that then, are discussions around the free trade area already happening in boardrooms between marketers, and are they preparing for it as far as you're aware, Helen?
I think it's early days, Kevin. There was some research done in Nigeria where, and this was a couple of years ago, where 60% of the business people that they surveyed were not aware of what it is and the benefits. But I did a little bit of research yesterday, and I see that in South Africa here, the Department of Trade and Industry are holding awareness meetings and strategies and group awareness talks to try and get everybody to get on side. So I think it's going to be a lengthy process, but I think it has started, and I think it's going to sow some fruits.
Mulemwa, one of the things that the free trade area on the continent would demand is a competitive marketing strategies when it comes to tourism and the hospitality sector. Are we seeing different marketing strategies for tourism being rolled out per country, or is it the same strategy across the continent? And do you think that the free trade area would change something like that?
And just to put it into context, I did touch on it earlier. The agreement came into play during the pandemic, and tourism was one of the most affected sectors by the pandemic. So we are all at a zero stat line, and it's been a conversation around recovery. So even unwillingly, people are now rethinking their approach towards their destination promotion, their destination. I think at this point, we're not even at destination positioning, because we are all just trying to, recover and then recover sustainably. And then how do we then, get going? So I think everybody, it's a good time that now people should be able to incorporate in intra-Africa as a source market. So because most of the destinations had their source markets from the Americas, from Europe, from Asia. But now we are now looking at Africa. So Africa also at a regional level, because the threat is still alive with us, so we're a bit more cautious. So we are now looking at how do we start recovering, how do we strategize to make the most of what we have. So I think most of the destinations in the last year, Zambia included, have launched new short-term strategies. So we're not even seeing the 5-year strategies. For Zambia, we are actually doing a year-on-year. So we are in a 2023, which had a target of 1.5 million travelers, including both domestic and international, and also a strategy that reduced the visa requirements, the visa application from destinations within Africa. So that, I think, has become a common trend where the length of the strategy itself is reduced, and also the target markets.
Yeah, the streamlining visa regimes seems to be a trend which is running alongside the signing of the protocols of the free trade area, although only a handful of countries have signed. Does the free trade area help the recovery in tourism, Mulemwa, in any way at all? Or is it a case of not even being able to utilize those instruments?
I think what it has done, and when we look at the sector itself, in most destinations, it was actually perceived more as a social sector rather than a key economic sector until the pandemic. So now you find that the movement of people becomes a bit heightened in how governments are approaching this conversation, because there is the recognition of how much revenue destinations actually lost. So now talking even just cross-border traders, because we don't look at them as tourists. We don't qualify them as such, but they are actually from definition, this is a person that's traveling for more than 24 hours from their place of stay. So you find that the cross-border traders themselves are actually key players in the tourism sector, and they were not quantified as such. So now we're seeing there is a greater push towards the conversations, the high-level conversations around the movement of people. And what that also does is it also, the agreement also encourages the free movement of skills. So we're now going to see people that lost jobs, because there's a lot of demand, a lot of skills demands at the moment, because most of the people that were working in the sector either left the sector, went to join other industries, or just fell off, and when they were furloughed, they were never called back. So you're finding that there's a lot of people that are looking for jobs across borders, and because of the free trade agreement, we need to now embrace that you can go and get a job in a different country from your own. So that is what is happening at the moment, and it's a plus that we've got the agreement in play.
I think that does set the base for what the market is doing. Teresa, what do marketers do when the markets are starting to behave that way? You talked about like growing your production because of access to a bigger market. Essentially, the free trade area is about access to bigger market. But once you've grown your production, you still have to pitch your ideas, pitch your brand. Does a bigger market require a different way of marketing?
There needs to be market research, and I think market research is standard for any company or any organization or any country that wants to go into another land. You have to do your research, see if there's a need, see if there's a demand, probably do some trials and some tests as well to make sure that the market can welcome your product. You don't want to go into another country and not be received, because you didn't conduct thorough research. So research is still important in any marketing field or in any field per se. And then once you've done your research, obviously from a strategic marketing point, your campaign needs to align now. So we need to change even the wording that we used to use, the taglines that we used to use, the communication that we used to use. It's no longer about just doing generic push advertising and hoping that it's going to work. It's now a case of when you structure your campaign, who are you talking to now? You're talking to a bigger blanket, you're talking to a different market. Are you able to localize it to a certain extent that it brings about resonance to the people that are going to receive your goods or your services? So we also need to have those type of conversations from a strategic marketing point to say, even as far back as your media buying, where you are showing it, where you're presenting it, do you get special discounts because you are spreading your wings within the African free trade? If it's not going to change on my budget, and as a marketing person, I have a budget of say 50 million and I need to spread it, but I don't get a discount on out of home, I don't get a discount on TV, I don't get a discount on voice rates, I don't get discounts on anything because I'm part of the African free trade. What are the fundamental benefits for me as a marketer to push or to promote this? Or should I just continue with my normal marketing strategy?
I think one of the easiest ways to get a grip of what the market is like in the different countries through outsourced research. Helen, do you know if there are any continental bodies conducting research that they could give to marketers about how to approach these new markets where their products may have not been before, but could be because of the free trade area?
Yeah, there are certainly companies that are doing a lot of research. I know Kantar is doing a lot of research that we're using. I think to take a step back, though, I think it's not just about understanding the new markets that we've perhaps opened up to. It's about recognizing the culture of the market that you're going to. We, as part of the AMC's constitution, recognizes the diversity of the various African countries, the diverse markets, the diverse people, the different cultures. So I think it's about researching your product's acceptance into that new market, but it's also about really understanding. So many marketing mistakes have been made by not understanding the culture. And as we know, Africa and Africans have a very rich and diverse culture. So I think it's about expanding that research into getting right down into what these people's beliefs are, what their languages are. There's over 2,000 languages on the continent. How do you speak to them? What is the polite way of doing business? Very different rules for very different cultures within the countries in Africa. So yeah, research is absolutely vital. But I think we have to go a step further down into not just about product and advertising research, but the real people research.
One of the best ways to understand people's cultures is through hospitality, Mulemwa. In fact, that's actually one of the first ways that people showcase their different cultures is at the hotel where you're staying. Before you even get to the lodge or the game drive or the classically stereotypical part of the country, which is the main core of its tourism sector. How do marketers use the hospitality sector then to try and break their product into it? Do you think there's an opportunity there, Mulemwa?
Yes, and this is so the tourism is primarily how, I mean, it's about the experience. How we package the experience of our visitors determines whether or not we get more people to come back, or so for marketers, I think we have for a long time excluded the marketing component to the sector, to travel, tourism, and hospitality, especially on the continent. Even the learning and career paths are not very open, because this is, you've got people that study general marketing and then they cross over with cross-cutting skills into the sector. There has never actually been a deliberate specialization of understanding how to not just develop the products, but how do we actually, make sure that we give the best experience from a destination point of view. What is our unique selling point as a destination? Like Helen referenced in terms of the culture, have we actually invested enough, not just from the Zambia point of view, but from across the continent? Have we actually invested enough, not in building our product, but in understanding the experience? what, how are our visitors feeling after they leave, and what is actually how are we measuring the return on those investments that we've made, in terms of, if we're going out and doing a marketing campaign, what is the value from the destination's point of view? If you put out a billboard, or if you went out on, I think most of what has been done previously is you've got a destination marketing organization, usually a conventions company or the government itself, that goes out, because this is a government budget. So they'll go out and they have to tick boxes on an annual basis. And they do come up with the taglines. A lot actually has gone into selling. But in terms of actually measuring, we've done considerably less. And this is where I think the focus has to be, because even the client now has changed, because we were going outside to sell. We're now looking within, and also attracting the ones that left. How do we reassure them? What is the difference in what we're going to say? And now we should be able to bring, Zambia is surrounded by eight different countries. We are land-linked, not landlocked. We're a land-linked country that is saying, look, you don't even need to fly. Even if the world closed tomorrow, you can drive in and out. And that becomes a unique selling point. That is a differentiator, because pre-COVID, it was not an issue. Nobody ever thought the world would stop, flying. So now we need to look at how are we actually, as from a marketing point of view, how are we actually building how are we building and how are we measuring the experience? How are we commodifying? Because that also we haven't done too well. Zambia is a country where, I'm going to refer a lot to Zambia, but also Africa is a place where there is we are known to be nice people, very nice people, and safe. We're a peace-loving country. But we've never actually commodified that. We've never actually gone out and said, come back to my country because everybody smiles. But that is that in itself is something that makes their destination attractive, because people feel safe. But we've been very humble and actually never gone out and commodified this. And from where I sit now, from the Institute of Tourism and Hospitality Studies, this is now something that we're conducting research on, because why is it that this field of study doesn't exist, for lack of a better term, in our context? Because we take it for granted. Africans are very nice people. Anywhere you go in Africa, people are going to. We've not actually looked at what is the value of this hospitality and niceness. And this is where I think the marketers can really, really come in and help the destinations in trying to find that unique selling point and really optimizing it. How are the destinations going to make the most of that the African or the local experience in each of the unique destinations, not just the dress, but how hospitable we are as a continent.
Tarisai, what do you think? I mean, I'm hearing that you need to localize your strategy. What are you hearing?
What I'm hearing from Mulemwa is that we actually need to have a consolidated effort as marketers to sell Africa as a whole. So yes, to sell to each other, but to also have one messaging that goes out about Africa and the benefits of Africa and the benefits of African people, so that we are investable as well, because we have now taken pride in ourselves and using the same measurements that we use with any marketing strategy, your data analytics, your Google searches, your SEOs, your SEMs, making sure that all of that aligns so that when the search for Africa happens across the globe, it shows all the benefits of Africa, and Africa is presented as a selling point. And that can only be established through marketing, because we know how to sell. So we're actually brand ambassadors. Whereas political people always sell the political side of things, or the government will sell the government side of things. But she's saying, let's come back to a point where Africa is sold with all its beauty and all its crust and made to appear as the best investment opportunity for each other and for the world. And I don't know, Helen, is there a concerted effort from all marketers coming around to come up with one strategy for Africa? Or is it different countries all having different strategies and still in some certain way still competing because we're all pushing our own country's agenda versus an African agenda?
I think, yes, I was speaking up at a conference in Malawi last year, and I brought up this exact point that you're saying, Terasai. So really, we've got to rebrand Africa. If people Google Africa, it's poverty, it's war, it's corruption, it's fear, it's all that kind of stuff. And I was also asked the question is, how do we do that? And this is kind of what everybody's been saying, is we're doing it one country at a time. Each country is rebranding itself. But I think the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement will be a really good step going forward that we can all buy into, even if we are separate countries and we are brand Africa and brand South Africa and brand Zambia. It will help us over time to actually get the positioning of Africa correct on the global stage again. So yes and no. I think there's a concerted effort. I think everyone's aware that we need to rebrand Africa, but I think they're starting to do it by doing their own countries first. Yeah, long term, I think we'll get there.
From an educational point of view, is there courses or studies or material that maybe if a marketer or the younger generation want to tap into that, they can actually start doing that? Are institutions being proactive in ensuring that this is added, let's say, to the curriculum?
I think the African Marketing Confederation has 10 members at the moment. We've got very strong ties to the Zambian Institute of Marketing, and I think that they are certainly, in my discussions with them, incorporating the curriculum, this kind of subject and subject matter into their curriculum. I know Brand Kenya is doing very well as well with their online courses in terms of how do we get it going. So yes, I think it's a slow-moving target, but slowly but surely we are going to start looking at destination experience marketing and African, we've got to start telling people what the benefits of this agreement is, and it's got to be incorporated into the theory of marketing and marketing on. The reason we sorry, I'm rabbiting on a bit, but the reason we started the AMC in 2011 is because I was lecturing at master's level in marketing, and all the case studies were European or American, and Africa is different. So yeah, it's been a long 10 years, but I think people are slowly in the academic field starting to realize that we need our own case studies. We need to find unique strategies for unique African problems. That was a bit long-winded, but
no, it was great.
Mulemwa, what do you think? I mean, do you think those case studies come from the tourism sector because of its unique African experience? Or do you think that the tourism sector is kind of waiting to see what the marketers will roll out across different businesses? I do want to get into some business to business and business to consumer marketing ideas that have come out from the African Free Trade of Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. But let's first talk about, are people learning from tourism, or are we waiting to learn?
We're sleeping on tourism. So I come from, I'm a planner, and pretty much all my education is American based. And I have had to get my certifications out of the US, and I've been sitting in front, I've been sitting with lecturers that have never been on the continent. They have no idea where I'm coming from, but they're the ones that are supposed to teach me. So for me, that was a problem, because I am sitting there and I'm supposed to do a case study on the Super Bowl. And I'm like, no, hang on, there's something wrong here, because I am going to work in a different environment. I need to have the person that stands in front of me should understand even the examples that they're giving me. And this is how I pivoted into academia, because I realized, I said, their industry itself has set learning standards, and these are the learning standards. And we as Africa, if you look at the meetings industry across Africa, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and we've not invested. There is not one school that has specialized in education for that sector. When it comes to destination marketing, there is an organization called SITE, Society for Incentive Travel Excellence. This is where most of the people that are from the destination marketing side of things come from. So this is also American, EU, European based, and you find that now we're getting a bit of learning happening. But even the certification exams, when you write them, it will be zero Africa content. It is because there isn't any demand, there hasn't been any push from our learning, from our educators to try and get this content. And then the other thing is, the tourism sector is, for some, it's an accidental career path, because in school, especially people my generation, you couldn't with a straight face say you're going to pursue a career in tourism. Now the kids now are luckier, they can get away with it. Before it was, you were a lawyer, an engineer, tourism is down the food chain. Now we need to work first to make it attractive, because when I speak to young marketers now, I talk to them about specializing in things like destination marketing, event strategy. These are programs that they can invest themselves in, and they can differentiate themselves in the job market, because the opportunities are there. I think with the Zambia Institute of Marketing, I think this is why they had me come on today. We just came out of a week-long summit with the United Nations World Tourism Organization, where we're adapting the tourism education guidelines that are available for every member country. This is kind of a first step into integrating, like changing the narrative around tourism. So we are now looking at rethinking the destination from a human capital point of view, because we neglected the human factor in tourism development. Now, this is why the sector keeps lagging behind, because you find that in all destinations, the infrastructure is perfect, the policies are there. Why then does this sector fail to thrive? Why are we always at the bottom of the food chain? During the pandemic, everybody, engineering, agriculture, they were all, having a sit at the table. Tourism was always and tourism. We were piggybacking on somebody else. So now we need to recognize the critical role that our human contribution to tourism development is actually limited. And a lot of what we do is actually selling. I have to have the understanding, the marketing theory of how do I build this event and sell it, because even when I'm selling these events, I'm not selling them just in this destination. These are regional, Africa-wide. You find that a lot of planners like myself in the different destinations that are leading this conversation probably have little or no marketing background, and they are thriving maybe on talent, a bit of experience, and here and there the marketing skills or knowledge has been incorporated, but there has been no the marketing element, the marketing fraternity, the bodies in charge of marketing have never looked at, we need to actually be in the forefront of this sector, because everything that happens in this sector is actually marketing. So for Zambia, we're lucky that now the Minister of Tourism, the Permanent Secretary, the head of the agency, everybody is a marketer. So the pressure is on. But I'm thinking this may be the game changer, and also a best practice model for saying this is the role that marketers actually have in the destination agenda.
Impressive that they've appointed marketers to head up the tourism agencies. Maybe they'll do that in South Africa. I think if we could get past the catered deployment, maybe. Let's talk about
We can
something.
only hope, Gavin, we can only hope.
Let's talk about a digital hub, which was launched by the African Continental Free Trade Area last year. And last month, I think they actually had a gathering in Cape Town. Essentially, they say this is a collective of small businesses in different parts of the continent. Granted, the biggest uptake has been in Ghana, so it's kind of been concentrated there. And essentially what it is business-to-business marketing for businesses that are affiliated within the free trade area. So that's one platform being created by the free trade area, right? Are there other platforms that are being created for business-to-consumer marketing opportunities in the free trade area? I think I'd get any of you to weigh in on this, because I think we're getting to the nub of whether the free trade area offers direct opportunities for marketers and whether it's set up for marketers or whether marketing is a secondary beneficiary of the free trade area actually existing. Terasai, let me get your initial thoughts about this.
Tricky one. Tricky one. I know a number of products that have been shipped across borders. Unfortunately, the leg room was it took maybe 7-8 weeks for them to actually arrive to their destination port, which was a problem because obviously transport logistics, they still need to map that. In some cases, products had to go from one country, then go overseas before being brought back here into Africa. So there are those type of constraints that are being faced, which the African Continental Free Trade Area needs to address. And I think it would be great also to have a collective. So if I am shipping off my products from South Africa and I need them to get to, let's say, Kenya, is there a way that we can collectively get all our goods onto one ship so that it can go once a month to that country or once every 2 weeks to that country, thereby reducing the cost of goods and the cost of goods being shipped across? Because I think the cost of goods was actually really expensive in terms of transport and logistics. And then also when you shipped your goods, you had no responsibility for the marketing. I'll give an example. There are these chips that are sold. They're called plantain chips. You get them in Discam. You can get them here in South Africa in Discam. They actually go from plantain being produced in Ghana. They go all the way to Ecuador before being brought back here to South Africa and then being repackaged in South Africa to be sold on the shelves in Discam. And there is no marketing that is done specifically for that product. For that farmer, for example, who actually harvested the plantain chips, there was no direct line of marketing for them. And it would be important to bring these things into light that for the farmer who's just produced his plantain chips, how can he get those to the market without having to go via all these channels, which will make his product, when they get to a certain destination, expensive for the consumer?
It's a great case study as usual, Terasai. Thank you for that. Helen, what do you think about opportunities for marketing within the Free Trade Area Agreement?
I think one of the big things that's come out of it is the mobile money. I was just going through my notes, PASS, I think payment, I can't remember what it's called, but in terms of putting our own currency together as an African continent and allowing people in the sort of rural areas to be able to purchase products that they didn't have access to. Now that the products are there with the free trading, then they're going to have to be able to pay for it. So I think that that's one initiative that's really going to work for us. I think we have to be a little bit careful about focusing on the big corporates, the MTNs that are cross-border anyway. So much of the trading that is done on the continent is done by small and medium enterprises. How is the free trade area agreement going to benefit them? How are they going to have the affordability, have the money available? So now they can send their products into Ghana or Zambia, but are they going to be able to do so from a budgetary point of view? I think we tend to look at this agreement or area, and we're focusing at the top, realizing that Africa has a load. I mean, it's it's run really almost by small, medium enterprises. So we need to consider that going forward.
Mulemwa, your sector is dominated by small, medium enterprises. It's actually one of the sectors where multinationals don't dominate the trade because of the, I suppose, jealous guarding of tourism strategies that each country has. And now here we are talking about the free trade area agreement, and they'll have to open up and share their strategies. Do you think, or do you want the free trade area agreement to have specific routes of engagement between these tourism agencies, or do you think that they will likely say, no, thank you, we'd like to keep our secrets to ourselves because you might just take some of our visitors?
It's funny because most of the time, I think previously we had issues with South Africa because the Victoria Falls would be sold in the airport in South Africa, and you find when we're walking through the airport, it will be like, but that is not even in South Africa, you know. That was how we felt. But now, rather than look at it from a competition point of view, we need to look as operators from a collaborative point of view. How do we collaborate and maximize the platforms that are there? Because now we could be able, obviously, because we have signed off on certain things, so there is a way in which we can benefit together. But we need to then sit down and really read through this document and see, if I'm an operator in Zambia, I should be able to sell openly that you come to Zambia, I'll be able to take you to 3-4 countries around me, you know, like spend a week in Zambia, because this was done before. You find somebody is saying, come to have breakfast in Paris, lunch in, you know, in Rome or something. They were from a destination marketing company. They would be able to do that, and we would buy these hop on hop off packages. Why have we failed to do that? Because we don't look, we've not really looked at ourselves from a point of view of having a unity of purpose in this conversation. We are focused solely on, I need to keep my territory. So as operators, for me, what I would like to see is, from each point of operation, what does this document actually say? Because remember, if I'm an operator in Zambia and I get somebody to come into my country and I say, I'll take you to 4 countries, it means the revenue will be paid to me. The taxes may not reach the other 4 countries where I will be taking the other people. Already that is a huge problem for so how do the other 4 countries benefit? That already is a conversation that is not a tourism conversation, but it should be for the revenue agencies to basically determine how does the taxation, what is the taxation regime that is going to apply for a tourist that is coming into these destinations. So you look at it also from a point of view of moving, whether it's if I'm driving in or if I'm flying in, the carrying in of the bringing in of goods. So if I'm coming in with equipment, say for a performance, if I'm bringing in a band or something, they are going from country to country with all this equipment that needs certain paperwork to be approved at every border that they cross. But with the free trade agreement, there is an opportunity to actually do clearance once and go through all the countries that you need to go through. So I think we also just need to relearn. We need to rethink how we've been working, and then now look at what are actually the opportunities of this free trade agreement. What does it actually mean? Because it's goods and people, goods, services, and people.
Thank you. All right, ladies, we're wrapping up. Before we do, usually we talk about which types of marketing rank differently with regards to the topic at hand. But I think how we could phrase it, or what we could do today, is ask, what kind of marketing would work best when trying to leverage the free trade area. So is it traditional forms of marketing, or are we likely to see marketers preferring digital marketing first because they're trying to reach more than one country? And this is a question that I have for all three of you. Helen, I'll start with you, and then Mulemwa will ask you to weigh in, and then Taris, I will kind of have the last words. But what do you think, how do you think marketers will approach the free trade area, and what kind of marketing do you think they'll use?
I would look at who I'm targeting. I think that would speak a lot to how we actually sell. And the amount of eyeballs on the internet cannot be ignored. Social media, using all the social media platforms, also just identifying, again, understanding the product and who we are selling it for. If you were selling a Christmas package, ideally you were selling to a certain, you're not selling to me, you're selling to my kids, because those are who I'm thinking about when it's a Christmas holiday. So rather than, I'm probably going to receive some email, some mails that come to me about, discounted rates for the holiday that are going to go straight into my spam. But my kids are on TikTok. They're probably seeing things on social media that they're receiving. And it's easier for me to respond based on their interests. So it's basically understanding who this product is for, and then developing maybe a marketing campaign. So I wouldn't really discount the traditional methods, but focusing also on the opportunity that digitization has really brought us, like making sure that we use everything that we know, the basics of marketing, but now bringing them to where we are in terms of time and the post-pandemic era. So who is it I'm selling to? It's going to be the digital platforms. Also, we want the world to come back to Africa. How is that going to happen? There's a lot of need for certain niche markets in the out of Africa source markets. How do we get them back in without them worrying about the fear of getting stuck? There is, say, Australia that suffered a lot with the fires. Like Australia went through a lot, and there are a lot of adrenaline, I don't want to use junkies, but that is the type of market. Like I would look into the Australia market and really look at what they went through and say, okay, can we design a campaign around promoting the adrenaline fueled experiences on the continent that we can then sell into Australia. So really understanding who we want to attract into the destinations and making sure that we involve our marketers. So as operators, we may understand what we're selling, but in order to actually create the change that we want to see in the market, we need to bring in the marketers as well as really appreciate the contents of the free trade agreement.
Absolutely. It depends on the product. It depends on the audience. I've got a 27-year-old daughter that doesn't even look at Facebook anymore. She's all about Instagram. So obviously, depending on what I'm trying to sell would be to that. So I fully understand your Christmas package, your children and so on. I was really trying to say that I think in order to market this new agreement that we've got on the continent, because of the different levels of marketing and media and social media, then I would start with probably traditional.
What are the marketers saying? I think I always ask you that question. So really, like, what do they think? What are they doing?
So to answer your question regarding whether we should do traditional first or digital first, it's a marketing mix. And I'll always go back to this. And especially me, because I come from a content background and creating post-production videos, and I feel like content drives a lot of consumer engagement. I would recommend doing a marketing mix. We need to have a brand messaging that goes out on traditional platforms that everyone can understand, that being TV, radio, across the board, out of home, and it communicates what is this in a way that everyone can understand, not in a way that people will be like, African, continental, like in their heads, they're already doing the math. So we need to have clear messaging that people can understand. And that comes from establishing the brand, which would be your traditional way. But we also need to make use of all the other channels. And I'll give an example. Burna Boy, for example, just sold out a concert in the UK. He is the biggest African ambassador on the continent. You have people like Uncle Waffles that are DJs that are making it across the board, signing agreements with your Sierras and they are actually creating content that resonates with people. I myself had the pleasure of going to Zambia and going to the Devil's Pool, and the video that I posted at the Devil's Pool hanging off that cliff got I don't know how many views. And, subsequent to that, there are those type of platforms that we also need to make use of that will add to the brand messaging that is coming across. So it almost becomes a marketing mix to say, this is what Africa has to offer. And then obviously over and above that, I'll always go back to data-centric, human-centric approaches. Use data, use technology. Technology right now is thriving. We need to have, even the look and feel of the website, the invitation that goes out, the ranking that it ranks on the website when people do search engines. How are we ranking? Where are we ranking? Algorithms, how are we making use of those type of technologies to be able to market this? So we need to have a comprehensive marketing agenda that covers that. 5FM actually was doing a campaign recently on radio, and they were recording 5FM live from Kenya, Zambia, Mozambique. They went across all the African countries, and that is a radio station in South Africa promoting local tourism. And that received great coverage. People were calling in and saying, I've been to this country, I've been to this country, and it brought about that engagement and that sense of pride. So we need to really get to a point where we harness everyone to believe in this, which comes through your traditional platforms, but we also need to make it a marketing mix that utilizes all marketing tools to the best of our advantage, because we're now in an era where everyone has access to their phone, everyone has access to technology. So let's leverage off WhatsApp, send the WhatsApp videos, the statuses, really make the marketing strategy comprehensive, because it's possible. It's been done in Qatar. Everyone speaks about Qatar and Dubai. It's been done in the Middle East. It's been done in Europe with the Choose Europe campaign. So as Africa, it's something about just being able to harness what we have and replicating it.
Thank you, Terasai. And I think we're going to wrap up now. Terasai, let me stick to you. Usually we wrap up by asking what the takeaways are from this conversation. There's so much that we've discussed. Just give me a few takeaways, one or two, that you think marketers should keep top of mind when thinking about the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, but what it has to offer for marketing especially. What do you think?
The consumer landscape has increased. We have the ability to grow the market. We have the ability to have a huge consumption. In as much as people are afraid of, let's say, AI and technology and all of that, in Africa, we literally have food. No one's ever going to go hungry. No matter how much AI you use, you need food. So let's sell Africa. Let's sell experiences. No matter how much AI you have, at some point you need to jump off the cliff at the Victoria Falls. So let's sell those type of experiences, because that always brings about that human-centric approach. And I think let's have a better conversations amongst ourselves about Africa in terms of the engagement and the excitement about Africa and the excitement about things that Africans are doing. I'll give an example. I'm going away to the USA for the Mandela Washington Fellowship Program. Already, I am an ambassador by being a part of that program for Africa. So when I land in the US, my conversations should be about the beauty of Africa. So every person should become the mouthpiece for Africa. It must not just rely on marketing, though marketing is the topic of this conversation, but be an ambassador for Africa is my key takeaway.
Thank you. Mulemwa? I think she may have stolen your line there, because that's kind of along the lines of what you were saying. What are your takeaways from this conversation?
It ended too soon. I was going to say, I think I have worked in this sphere, and it's very gratifying to find tourism and conversations around tourism come front and center now, not just in Zambia but across the continent, from the realization of the value of this sector. So I'm speaking at an event next week as well in Mexico, really about meeting in Africa, which is primarily based on the lack of understanding of what Africa actually is to the planners that are working in the US and other markets. Because from a destination point of view, we are 54, is it 54, 55 different experiences. So you cannot, there is too much to do on the continent. Time is what we don't have. So I'm really hoping that Africa itself can wake up to what it actually has. We need ourselves to wake up to really the power and potential of the tourism sector, and the role of the marketer in every destination across Africa. What are you as a marketer doing to position your destination? Forget about us being competitors. For a moment, just think about, are you helping your destination put its best foot forward as a marketer? Because everybody that is involved in marketing is really selling your country, your home. But are you in the room? Are you at the table to make sure that your destination is putting its best foot forward? So yeah, from my point of view, I think that is it. I've had such a good time. I hope to meet with the marketers again soon.
Thank you, Mulemwa. And Helen, you'll get the last word in terms of the takeaways for this discussion. What should marketers keep top of mind when they're thinking about this talk?
I think from a marketer's point of view, yes, it is all very exciting, this whole continental free trade area. In fact, as I said in the beginning, our theme at our conference in September is about the millions and trillions of marketing opportunities that are available to us coming out of this new agreement. But I think what we also need to be aware of is, I read an article the other day, the free trade area hopes to do this, it will achieve this. We've talked about it now. It's time to actually get on and implement it, and not to forget that politics are going to play a role. I'm afraid that is the elephant in the room in terms of trying to get, we talked about working in other countries, trying to get a work permit in South Africa for Zimbabweans has become a huge issue. And so I don't think it's going to be as simple as we all maybe think. And hopefully when the politicians, or not politicians, but the policymakers actually get down on the ground and stop talking and filling in paperwork and actually do something, then I think it's going to be hugely beneficial for all marketers on the continent.
Thank you. And you kind of ended it by introducing one of the most controversial topics that's out there, which is the ZEP permit. And I think that, yeah, you're right. It is going to be left to the politicians. What we've seen is that they're completely capable of changing their minds about policy at the last second. And to that extent, we're at the whim of those changes. We're essentially subject to them. The free trade area is a political initiative, but there are huge opportunities for marketers there. And I think we should end it there. Just a reminder that the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement is expected to boost trade by 15 to 20%. It's described as a $3 trillion borderless market opportunity. And it really is the future. It's going to be the biggest free trade area once everyone is involved and has signed the protocols since the free trade area in Europe was launched. And in many ways, it's going to change how Africa operates. So marketers can't afford to ignore it. And I think that it will probably have a huge impact on the world of marketing. But that's it for today's Institute of Marketing Management's Friday Flash Talk. Thank you so much for joining us. As usual, it's been insightful, as it always is. Thank you to our guests, Helen McIntee, she's the president of the African Marketing Confederation, as well as Mulemwa Moongwa, she's the chairperson of the Zambia Institute of Tourism and Hospitality Studies, and our marketing enthusiast, a resident who's helping us guide these conversations, Terasai Moffat. Thank you so much, Terasai. She's the MD, co-founder of Gateway Synergy, and we'll continue these insightful conversations. Join us next time when we're discussing brand strategy and what defines tomorrow's brands. Thank you again for tuning in to the IMM Friday Flash Talks. From myself, Govin Whittles, your host. Do remember to engage with us on social media platforms. Also take this conversation further in your own discussions, and perhaps a few more insights will emerge from those. But we hope that we've been of help here with the explaining of the latest trends in the world of marketing. And do join us next time for the IMM Friday Flash.